Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at this Your Overseas Home webinar. My name is Christopher Nye, and I am Senior Writer at Your Overseas Home. Today, I will be chatting with Danny Cook, who is a trader at Smart Currency Exchange, all about foreign exchange for anyone buying property overseas. It's great to have you with us today, whether you're watching us live or you're catching up on demand. Now, Danny, before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself and say a little bit about Smart Currency?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Chris. My name is Danny Cook. I'm on the account management team here at Smart Currency Exchange. So here at Smart, we've been around since 2004, helping people to manage and mitigate currency risk. So just going to give a 30-minute presentation to you all here about currency risk. We will also go into the end with a Q&A where you can ask some questions as well that may come off the back of the presentation.
Excellent. Okay. So now, if you have any questions, as I'm sure you will, please put them into the Q&A tab on the right-hand side, and we'll get Danny to answer as many of those questions as we possibly can. And don't forget that you can always contact Danny afterwards for those particular questions about your individual circumstances. But do throw them into the chat, because someone else is bound to want the same question answered. Okay, so Danny, why don't you start your presentation?
Yeah, perfect. Let's get into it. Thanks, Chris, again. So yeah, again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danny Cook. As I said, I'm one of the team leaders on the account management team here at Smart Currency Exchange. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to discuss the wonderful world of currency and how thrilling it is. I've been working in this industry for 4 years, helping people like yourself to understand, manage, and mitigate currency risk when it comes to buying an overseas property. As I said briefly there, Smart Currency, we've been around since 2004, so coming up to 20 years now. We're Rightmove's exclusive currency partner as well, and do work with a number of estate agents listed over in Spain, France, Portugal, other countries to help people who are buying property overseas. Whilst being thrilling, the currency exchange markets do pose risks when buying an overseas property. So the aim of this webinar is to give you an introduction to those markets and see how you can best protect yourselves from the risks that they pose. So just going to give a presentation here to bring everyone up to speed, and then we'll do a quick Q&A at the end for any questions that may come off the back of anything I talk about here. So first up, why is currency important? The currency casino. So there may be some gamblers amongst you, I'm not too sure, but would you walk into a casino with £25,000 of your savings and put it on red or black? When buying an overseas property at a price of €250,000, your currency risk is upwards of £25,000. So a very substantial sum of money, and that is really the risks that these currency markets posed. Reason being, on average, currency rates move 10% over a 1 year period. No one knows where rates are going. You can try and read forecasts, but the reality is each one you read will tell you a totally different thing or give a totally different prediction. So there is no way to know, and therefore it is essentially a gamble, what you're really doing. How does currency risk arise with overseas property? So essentially, once you've found a property and have an offer accepted, you are exposed to currency risk. You have an agreed price in euros, and at that moment, you know exactly what that will cost you in pounds. From offer accepted to completion, however, that can take approximately 3 to 9 months. And during that time, currency rates are moving, and therefore the property cost in pounds is also moving. In this time frame in the past, we have seen exchange rates move by 10%. So for your budget, again, that can make a difference of an extra £25,000. If you don't have a currency plan in place, therefore, you could find that on completion day, you may have to find an extra £25,000 compared to where you budgeted on day one. So that can, of course, cause issues, issues that you may not have foreseen at the start of the process. So that's really what we're kind of here to try and help you with, and there are many different ways in which you can go about that. Why do exchange rates move? So, as it says here, the currency markets are the most frequently traded on the planet, with an estimated 8 trillion transacted daily. Institutional, deliverable, speculative, all different types of currency trades happening day by day. The exchange rates are moving every second of every day. They're affected by a myriad of direct and indirect economic and political factors far beyond simply interest rates. So many different things that impact these markets. Market sentiment also plays a huge role. Very, very hard to predict where these rates are going. As I say, at the top of the presentation, really, you have major banks that will predict one exchange rate movement, another major bank will predict another movement. They are just very, very hard to predict, more or less impossible. So moving on to some, moving on to some key influences over the last 18 months in the UK, to name a few. A lot of political changes, a few different prime ministers: Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt, Kwasi Kwarteng, a few different budgets coming in. All of that impacts where the exchange rates are going. You have the cost of living crisis still ongoing, of course, soaring inflation, soaring interest rates. All of this is changing the markets constantly. You've got the Ukraine war still going on, the Gaza conflict. Of course, this year we also have potential elections coming up. Who knows how a new Labour government would impact the exchange rate? The reality is so many different factors impacting them all the time that, again, they are very, very hard to predict and therefore can pose challenges when buying a property overseas. Here's a little example then of what we were looking at last year in the markets. Just going to take a look back. You can see from the chart how much volatility we saw in 2023 just gone, which, if you're paying attention at the start, 10% average, 7% difference last year, maybe a bit of a, I suppose, quieter year in terms of volatility, but still 7% difference between the highest and lowest rates. We ended the year in a better position to where we started it, and we have also seen slight improvements going into the early part of this year. But who knows what's to come this year? As I say, elections coming up, potential new Labour government, maybe not. But again, who really knows what's going to happen? You can see here just how much movement there always is going to be year on year. So what can you do about currency risk? Again, just to reiterate from the previous slide, from the moment you are committed to that transaction, you are exposed to currency risk. That's a fact. On average, again, GBP/EUR moves 10% per year over the last 4 years. So on an overseas property price of 250k, that could be as much as £25,000. A lot different to when you're buying a domestic property. Imagine you were buying one for 250k. You negotiate your price and have your offer accepted. Would you accept that come completion day, that property is actually increased to £275,000? Why would you accept the same scenario just because the property is overseas? It's a similar process, but obviously you're buying a different currency. You're holding a different currency in terms of your source currency. So the price can change come completion day. Very, very different to the UK, where that's not going to happen. And of course, most people, I'd imagine, would be quite upset if come completion day, all of a sudden, there was a £25,000 extra cost. So forward contracts, one of the most popular tools, I suppose, for our clients. It allows you to agree your exchange rate once your offer has been accepted for delivery on completion day. This removes that gamble and gives you absolute certainty, allows you to focus on the property purchase process. It's a product that's not available to you through your high street bank, and the majority of overseas buyers use a forward contract. It is a very, very popular tool that we have here. And as I say, it's pretty much enables you to really manage and mitigate that risk that we've already been discussing here. So turning rates into real life, again, just a sort of real life example of how currency volatility may affect plans. So March 2022, these are real life examples, by the way, using 2022 exchange rate. So these are actual, real figures and a real scenario that, can unfold. So March 2022, Debbie and Richard find their dream villa for €300,000 on the Costa Blanca and pay a small reservation deposit. At this stage, the total cost of the property is £247,933. Come September 2022, completion day arrives and the balance is due. The cost of the property has increased to £269,179. So in not using the forward contract, Debbie and Richard had no idea what the rate was going to be on the date of completion, and that led to the property costing them an extra £21,246. Why take that gamble? The option is there to remove the risk. You're there to buy a property rather than gamble on exchange rates, hopefully moving in your favour, which you ultimately have no control over. So why should you use a foreign exchange specialist? There's a few different reasons here, really. Firstly, you'll be able to understand currency risk. We will help you to understand that risk so that you can make an informed decision on how to handle it. You can agree your currency plan. So before you go on your viewing trip, agree your currency plan. Ensure you have a trusted expert who has dealt with thousands of property transactions to help you understand that budget in both currencies, and you can agree that plan. Once you find the dream property, it's very easy to then execute that plan, and you can focus on the rest of the purchase process. And you can deal with the other complexity of the process, dealing with the lawyers, the counterparty. It's all a very extensive process. Having the currency to worry about is just an added worry often. So a forward contract, again, you can lock in today's exchange rate for delivery in the future and remove that risk. Again, a very, very popular option. Majority of my clients end up going down this route. It really does just remove all stress with the process and mean you can focus really on actually getting that dream property secured. Ongoing transfers, we're not just here to help for the main bulk transfer for the property. And we're very big on aftercare here at Smart Currency. So we're here to help you for the lifetime of overseas property ownership, not just the purchase. Living costs, renovations, community fees, we really are here to help with anything. We really want to help you, throughout the purchase process and thereafter moving forwards. And regular payment plan, again, something that really kind of links on to the previous point. If you send the same amount every month for your mortgage, pension transfer, or regular top up, we'll automate that for you. So that's another option we can help you with moving forwards as well. So here's just a little bit about us. So we are the trusted voice for high value international payments, specialising in property transactions. Been around for 20 years, as I said at the top of the presentation. So wealth of experience now in this space. More than £12 billion transferred, over 45,000 clients helped, 600,000 transactions managed, and we are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Something we really pride ourselves on as a business, is our, the value really we place on customer service, and we hope that's exemplified in our Trustpilot reviews. 5-star on there, rated excellent, so do go and have a look at our reviews as well. And of course, we're a UK-based team with our head office in London. We do have offices in Spain as well, but we do have our main office in London. So the process really, in brief, I suppose, 5-step process here. Step 1, speak to an expert early. Get yourself set up with us, get yourself through to an account manager, understand your budget, agree your currency plan. That's really the first step. Second step, you find your dream property. Great, you've been on trips, you've had a look round, you found one, you've had your offer accepted. Step 4 is just a call to us. You get back in contact with your account manager. Hopefully you've got a scheduled call with them in and around that time, maybe even. And you simply then execute that plan. You secure your exchange rate. You then have that sort of, as they say, 3 to 9 month process of dealing with lawyers, counterparty, getting all the I's dotted and the T's crossed and whatnot. And then you can enjoy your new home, which would be lovely. And come and speak to us. QR code there you can scan, email addresses, website. Get in touch with us. We're all very friendly. We like to hear from people.
Excellent.
And, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Danny. Perfect timing. We've got 15 minutes ready for questions available. Yep. They are coming in. I have to say, the first question that we're getting from quite a few people is, do you help Americans buy in Europe?
So we can help Americans. You do have to have a UK-based address, I believe, in order for us to help. It's a licensing thing to do with currency. So we can help Americans, but you do need to have some form of address or postcode in the UK in order to be registered. So if that's the case, we can help. If you're purely US based, it's a compliance. It's one for compliance basically. But yeah, that's the case generally. But we have helped Americans in the past for sure.
It's not a smart thing. I think it's an American authorities ruling.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. It's to do with licensing and American ruling. Yeah.
Apologies if some Americans aren't able to use you, but the same principles apply. Perhaps it would be a good time to mention that we have a virtual event. We have a whole virtual event, whole day of Q&A. It's on March the 16th. So do go and sign up for that. It's a Saturday. We're there all day.
Yeah.
You can chat with all the experts, not just currency, but also all the buying experts as well. Thank you for that. Right, now, why don't you just explain just briefly what's happening with the euro at the moment? Because I think most people are buying properties in Europe. So how are we doing pound or indeed dollar to euro at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's for people sending money from pounds across to euros. Firstly, very, very good position. You're currently in a top 1 percentile range of rates achievable since September 2022. So large swathes of clients, I would say, getting their rates secured who are in a position to do so. Been very busy over the last few days and weeks, really, with clients, wanting to call in and get their rates secured simply because of the strong position the markets are in, and wanting to take advantage of that, really. So, yeah, that's the situation for pound euro. Dollar euro, relatively similar. We've seen a slight increase, particularly since the start of this year, about 3% up. So 0.92 currently for dollar euro. In terms of the overall range of about 6 months, I'd say you're more in a sort of median range at the moment. We have seen highs of 0.95 back in October. So more of a median range there, but sterling euro certainly in a very, very strong position at the moment, I would argue.
Okay, fantastic. To use the QR code, by the way, you just point your phone camera at it and it will come up with a link. So that's how you use that QR code that's on your screen. Now, okay, so how much on average does the rate move? Are we just talking a couple of percent or something, or is it usually more than that?
Yeah, I mean, it can be, it can be very aggressive. As I think, as I mentioned in the PowerPoint, you're talking about 10% on average over a 4-year period. Now, when you start to talk about maximum movements, that's where you start to get, I suppose, it starts to get more concerning, I would say. If you talk about the maximum we've seen in the 3-month period, we've seen 14.5% movement in the past. So even the impact of that on 150,000 is is around the £21,000 mark. So now, although that might sound quite extreme, the reality is, again, no one really knows what's going to happen, how these markets react. A point that gets talked about a lot in the office was the budget towards the end of 2022 with Kwarteng and Trust, that was again alluded to in the presentation. Very aggressive movements off what was a slightly questionable budget, but nothing sort of overly dramatic, I suppose. And you see, the rate dropped to staggeringly low points. So it really is very hard to tell sometimes how the markets are going to react to certain news. Again, touched on it in the presentation, but potential new Labour government coming up, obviously not set in stone. But again, you really do just never know how the markets are going to react to these kind of things.
And I guess problems in the Middle East potentially, and when there's a global problem, I believe money flows to the dollar, and it doesn't flow to the pound. So the pound tends to weaken the more dangerous the world gets.
Correct. Yeah. So dollar generally seen as a safe haven currency, so it tends to get stronger in these times of political or global crises, I suppose, and the pound not so much. So again, a good thing to point out there in terms of who knows what's going to happen with these global conflicts going on as well.
Okay, so I'm going to plough through the questions that we got on screen. Peter has asked, what are your fees for arranging or managing a forward contract?
Yep. So in terms of how our fee structure works, there's no real fee as such, I suppose. The only way we make money as a business is purely in the buying and selling of currency. So what that boils down to is when you're looking at the exchange rate on Google, excuse me, what you're seeing there is the market rate, otherwise sometimes known as the interbank rate of exchange. So we're able to buy slightly beneath that as a currency business transacting, 5 billion each year. The rate we sell it on to clients at is again going to be slightly below that rate. In that differential, that's where our money is made as a business. So there's no fee per transaction, but that's how we keep the lights on It's all purely built into the exchange rate. It's going to be a lot closer to market than what you'd get for a high street bank, a post office, or something like that. So it's going to be, better for yourself in terms of an actual, from a financial perspective, in terms of the actual rate of exchange you'll get. But that is basically how our fee structure works. So even for a forward contract, no set fee. There'll just be a spread or a differential in the exchange rate, basically.
Okay, so if I was to go to France or Spain or Italy or any of these places, and I find the property I love, and I put an offer in, and it's accepted, and I'm committed to purchasing, and I then come to you, I get my forward contract, so everything's great. Then, as so often happens, the sale falls through. What happens about that forward contract?
Yeah, so I would generally say you've got three options in this scenario. So option A is to simply complete the contract. So you'll obviously have a value date on that forward contract. So you can complete the contract by sending us the rest of the pounds by that date. We can then hold the euros on file for you beyond that value date on the forward contract. So you would simply then have purchased euros on file ready to go for when you find another property. Option B, if you've got a forward contract in play, you're not quite, not quite able to get the funds together to pay for the rest of it in time, we can extend it, give you a new value date, or if things have again fallen through, you can keep the contract in play, extend the date out. And again, you'd have to speak to your account manager in order to have that actioned. Option C, and this is very rare to be honest, but you can cancel it altogether. So when we do that, we would sell back the purchased euros onto the market, and then it's dependent on the rate at the time of the sell back as to what would happen with the deposit paid for the forward contract. But there are different ways in which really you can manage the process when you've got a forward contract in play, basically. But those are the three options you've got: completing, we hold the euros; extending, or cancelling off altogether.
Okay, Susan has asked a not unreasonable question, I have to say. What if you have to send 340,000 euros as a first payment? Would we transfer this whole amount to you in the first instance? We are scared to send this amount for obvious reasons. Or would you break it down? So I suppose there's two questions. Do you have to send the whole amount, and who do we actually send it to?
So I was struggling to understand the question a bit, but yeah, in terms of, I suppose, different options, you can do a one-off transfer, what we call a spot transaction for 340,000. In terms of the mechanics involved with that, when we book an exchange rate, we buy the euros to lock the exchange rate for you. So we can then be very flexible, I suppose, in terms of when you get the sterling to us by. It could be just, 10 working days, for example, on what we call a spot, where you just would have to then get the sterling to us within 10 working days. And then upon receipt of that, we send the euros straight out. So we're very secure. Obviously, we're a fully FCA authorized company, which I think I touched on the presentation. But yeah, I think that answers the question. I was slightly confused by it.
Yeah, sure. Perhaps I didn't explain it as well as, in fact, Susan did. Could she break the payment down into different
into
blocks?
chunks?
She doesn't send the whole lot in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can break it down into chunks for sure, and that's twofold. You can either do it so that we can still book the rate for the whole amount, and then you can send it to us in chunks, or you can just book that amount in different chunks. You could do a 50k chunk and then another 50k chunk, whatever was to your liking, I suppose, and made you feel most comfortable. So again, these type of, I suppose, strategies in terms of getting funds out there will be something you discuss with your account manager in some depth. Every single requirement is going to be different. So there's going to be a different plan and strategy that you take, or that your account manager will take with you, depending on your own sort of thoughts and feelings when it comes to the markets and whatnot as well. But that is certainly something you can do in terms of breaking down a requirement like that into chunks. Yes.
Okay. David has asked if you can also help with investments and savings and other payments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Just need to know, currency pairing, amounts, whatnot. Just need to get in touch with us, get an account opened up. Accounts are totally free of cost or commitment to open. We don't just help with property. it is probably, I suppose, what we specialise in. We help a lot of people with property, but things like investments, I've helped a multitude of clients with things like that as well. So again, you can get an account set up totally free of cost or commitment. Speak to us, let us know what you're doing, and we'll get something in place to help you with that.
Okay, Frank has asked a question. It's just slipped off my screen. When funds are transferred, here we are. When funds are transferred to Smart prior to executing a forward contract, are these funds secure and guaranteed?
Yep, absolutely. So think touched on it, but authorised by the Financial Conduct Authority. So what that essentially entails is your funds are held in totally segregated bank accounts that are separate from our operating accounts. So these funds receive full 100% insurance by the Financial Conduct Authority. So your money is fully protected at all times. You can see our FCA number on all of our email signatures. Any person you speak to on the front office team here at Smart, you can see that. Similar to our company's house, you can always. I encourage my clients to look us up on all these different platforms to get that sort of I suppose safety and security aspects, fully, so that they're fully comfortable with that, basically. So do look us up on the FCA website, look us up on Companies House, and make sure you feel as comfortable as possible when dealing with us. But your money's fully protected at all times.
Great. Lots and lots and lots of questions. So Simon has asked if the same applies as it did to US residents with EU residents. Are you okay with European people?
Yeah, we can still help EU residents. There generally needs to be a UK flow. So some of flow, coming in and out of the UK, but we can certainly help EU residents. We help people a lot who are repatriating funds from Europe back into the UK as well with property sales. So it's not just, a one-way street. We're not just here to help with pound euro, but we can certainly help with those kind of requirements as well.
Okay. We got lots of questions, so we're going to go quite quick fire. Andrew, what if we are looking to buy a new build off plan and the stage payments will be over the next 2 years? How long can you fix the rate for?
So you can fix the rate for up to 24 months. So that's something you can certainly consider. Yeah, new build requirements are, of course, longer term. So again, that's really definitely something you want to be speaking to an account manager about in terms of formulating a plan for that. Be it a 24-month forward, whether you split that into 2 1-year forwards. Again, your account manager can discuss that with you and engage your your thoughts and feelings as to what's going to be the best resolution for you on those requirements. But yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can go about that, and a 24-month forward is definitely one of them.
Okay. Jane has asked if you lock in your rate and the currency market goes the other way, so your locked rate is not favourable, can you unlock, release, and just buy on the day?
So theoretically you can, but you've got to bear in mind if you unlock or cancel a forward contract. When we book a forward contract, what's actually happening mechanically is we're buying the euros in full for you in order to do that. So if we then cancel, if the rate increases and you then want to cancel it and rebook at the higher rate, we have to sell those euros back onto the market. At which point it's generally not going to be cost effective to then rebook at a new rate, because you could lose a portion of the deposit that you put down in order to secure the forward contract. So generally, once you've sort of secured that forward contract, that's going to be your rate for that amount of euros, and it's not going to be sort of cost effective to actually potentially cancel it and rebook it at a new rate generally. So it's kind of like once it's locked in, that is sort of your rate locked in, as it were.
As is your peace of mind. So at least
exactly. It's there to remove the risk and provide certainty. That's the reason it's there.
Okay. Officially, we've almost run out of time, but I think let's go on for another 5 or so minutes just to get through some of these questions, because they're really good questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joanne has asked, how is the money paid? Is it paid, I guess, when she's buying the property, would it be paid direct to the seller or into a European bank account?
So either is fine, right? Once the euros are purchased, they're essentially yours to send as and where you please. So often people want them sent straight to the solicitor's account. occasionally they might have their own euro account set up in Spain, France, wherever it ends up being, and they want us to send the euros there. Overall is fine with us. I would generally say just ensure that you send the pounds from a bank account with your name on it, because then that will make it a lot easier from a compliance perspective for us to send the funds in any direction to any third party. So that's generally the best way to do it. But we can send the euros anywhere really. Generally it will go to the solicitor's account in most cases, I would say.
Okay. Peter has asked, what's the difference between buying a forward contract and simply opening a bank account in Italy and transferring the whole of the amount into euros in that account straight away?
So yeah, it's a good point. I mean, these are the two sort of main products you're looking at, right? I suppose is the forward contract, and what you're referring to there is probably a spot contract, which is just a one-off transfer. So spot contracts, very, very straightforward to book it. It's 5-10 minutes on the phone to myself or your account manager to get one of those booked in. We can get the funds turned over in 24 hours. So if you've got to bear in mind that with a spot, right, you need to be able to get the pounds to us within sort of 5 working days. We can go up to 10 working days on those as well in some scenarios. So it's a bit different to a forward where you're giving yourself that sort of extra time frame to get the pounds to us. On a spot, we basically need the pounds, more or less straight away to then be able to transfer the process of the euros. So if you're in a position to do that, certainly you can look at a spot transfer, and we're still, we're going to be able to get you better exchange rates on spot than, say, again, a bank or a post office. So it's still very, very much worth speaking to us if you are, someone who just wants to get it out there, get it done kind of thing. We're here to help you in every scenario, really. As I say, forward contract is a more popular option for property buyers, but there might be some people it's not applicable to. It's not, it's not one way or the highway. There are different options.
Yeah, and one option, I guess, is to do half the money by a forward contract. So you know that you've got you got some locked in at that rate, even if you want to take the gamble on the rest.
Absolutely, yeah, that's an approach some of my clients do take. As you say, get half of it locked in, Chris, and then you've got some skin in the game for the rest of it. If the rates end up going up in your favour. So a lot of it, I suppose, depends on your risk appetite when it comes to money. Again, everyone's different in that sort of spectrum. So that's ultimately for you all to kind of decide as to which option feels like the best one for yourself. But that's certainly an approach you can take.
Okay, fantastic. We have finally run out of time. Thank you, Danny Cook, for all your insightful tips and advice, and thank you to the listeners for joining in. If you found this webinar useful, do please leave a review on Trustpilot. It does make a difference. That's your overseas home. Trustpilot, I think there may be a link coming up on your screen. And we would really strongly recommend that you get in touch with Smart Currency Exchange directly and get signed up, and you'll get their currency notes, so you know exactly what's happening with the currency. It's helpful just for your holiday cash apart from anything else, even if you're not buying quite yet. Tons of helpful information, guides to download on their website, and all that fantastic expertise. And then, of course, once you open your account, you'll have your own account manager, and you can chat through it all at your leisure. I believe there will be a link again to the virtual event. If you wish to go to that, I will be there, and I imagine Danny will as well. And we look forward to introducing you to a whole range of fantastic, useful information all about buying in your individual country. With that, thanks again for joining, and good luck with your plans to buy property overseas. Thank you very much. Goodbye.